Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Protecting Your Business in 2023. We get that right. OpenAI's Impact on Cybersecurity. We're right on pretty much just after 12, so hence the good afternoon, like I didn't get a good morning confused in there. Now, for those that have not attended our previous webinars, my name is Matthew Zarnock, and I am the CTO at alltasksIT. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we would like to continue our focus on cybersecurity and in particular, email security. Today, we will dive into OpenAI and we'll talk about how it is fast becoming a threat to all business, but also how AI is capable of defending your business. Yes, you can make AI work for you and not necessarily against you. As consumers of email services every single day, is it time to ask ourselves just how secure and safe are my emails that come into my environment or my business? And more importantly, are they just as safe and secure going back out? Sometimes there is email content you don't know is actually going out. One of the biggest challenges we see in our use of email every day is not necessarily the employees' email traffic, but the email traffic we take for granted to keep our business running smoothly. Sometimes it is the unknown mailboxes in your organization that are actually contributing to your cyber risk. However, there are steps and services we can use to counter email attacks, and instead of ignoring or second guessing if this email is meant for me or my business, let's utilize technology that is specifically designed to complement people and processes. As a trusted managed services provider, we are always here to help and discuss the types of IT service roadblocks or challenges that you might be experiencing in your line of business regarding cybersecurity or just IT service in general. We've been in this game for a long time, guys, and we're fully committed to understanding your business needs and providing long-standing solutions with you. To keep it interactive during today's session, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A option in this meeting. It's pretty much around the top of the screen there. You should see the Q&A button. What I would like to do now, though, is introduce you all to Luke Smith and Alex Anketel, who are our subject matter experts for today's webinar. Luke and Alex, welcome and thank you for your time today. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how we can all prepare ourselves for the fight against email security. Over to you both.
Thanks, Matthew, and thank you for everybody who's attending today. I'm Luke Smith from Barracuda MSP. I'm the Regional Account Director, and today we're here to chat to you about a few of the things that we just discussed in that intro. So we'll get this underway, but first I want to start off with a little bit about who Barracuda is. Our mission is to deliver innovative security products that are easy to buy, deploy, and manage, and we enable partners like alltasksIT, who's a premier partner with us, to deliver these security services successfully to you, the customers. We hope in turn that that'll help you be protected against the onslaught of cyber threats that we're seeing across the market at the moment. So just to touch base on what we're looking to cover over the next 45 minutes, we're going to have a quick discussion around the email security trends that we're seeing over 2023. We're going to have a little bit of a touch base on OpenAI and what does it mean for business. We're also going to highlight the 13 different types of email threats that we've identified at Barracuda and explain how we can help protect you from those threats. We've also got a little bit of information about Barracuda's Microsoft 365 email threat security scanner, which is a great tool to help enable you to understand what's actually going on inside your Office 365 tenancy. We'll also discuss a little bit about adopting a multi-layered security solution and how that's going to help you, and then obviously some best practices for your team. And I think, the other thing to remember is we also have a great price draw for everybody who attends and takes us up on the service today. So we'll cover that off later as well, but I'm sure you've seen it on the marketing emails. So let's get this underway. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of the email security trends that we're seeing. So just to give you an idea, 3 out of 4 organizations have been the victim of a successful email attack. Email is not only easily accessible, but it's also a very inexpensive tool for cybercriminals to initiate a potential data security breach with you. To put things in perspective, did you know about 300+ billion emails are sent and received every day? And I guess that's why hackers love to use emails to help initiate their attack. The fallout from an email security attack can be significant. The most widely reported effects were downtime and business disruption, and it affects over 44% of those users who have been hit. I think the average cost of email attacks is showing here, where we've seen one attack recently, which was over $1 million. This figure includes not only the direct monetary loss, but also the cost of the downtime, the lost productivity and data, and the reputational damage that the actual customers have been associated with. Costs associated with email attacks are generally more significant for larger organizations such as the media, utilities, and financial services. But this kind of cost can have a disproportional impact on smaller businesses as well. Therefore, we believe it's critical for all organizations to be prepared for cyber attacks and to plan ahead to minimize that impact and potential costs associated with that security breach. We've also found that companies with more than 50% of employees working remotely are more likely to report a monetary loss as an impact and a higher recovery costs. An example of this is you just can't walk over to someone else's desk to ask if they have to submit such a request or send such an email. It's a lot harder to understand how that's done. So it's especially important for remote workers to get good security training and have a good recovery plan. And something that came out of this report that's probably the most interesting is that nearly all respondents, 97% of them, felt underprepared to deal with some of the more prevalent cybersecurity threats we're seeing around the world. I believe another quarter of them weren't prepared to either cover the data loss or the malware, and it's going to cause more troubles for those businesses. One thing we're still seeing is that spam is still causing a massive headache for organizations. In fact, 28% of all respondents feel they're not even prepared to deal with less complex threats such as a spam attack. So at this point, we want to touch on a little bit more about what OpenAI is and what it does mean for business. So unless you've been living under a rock, which if that's the case, there's no judgment here, but I'm sure you've heard about ChatGPT. It's an AI-based chatbot system that creates conversations by using natural language processing. The system was launched by AI and a research company called OpenAI. While it was designed to mimic real human conversation, what we're finding out is it's capable of much more. For example, when it makes a mistake, it will generally apologize to the user. It can also elaborate and provide detailed explanations, while also remembering everything that was said earlier in the conversations as well. Some of the most common uses that we're seeing for the platform at the moment relate to brainstorming. So people are using it to design new content ideas and new topics. Recapping a long document. So being able to generate a condensed summary of a longer document to be able to pass on to people. Translating text into other languages, very quickly and easily. Creating blogs, social media captions, email responses, and other forms of marketing content as well. And then there's the types of potential OpenAI attacks that we're open to. A report from the Cloud Security Alliance dives into threat generative AI platforms, and it actually outlines what they represent to cybersecurity, ranging from the already detailed examples of how phishing campaigns will not only increase in sophistication and volume, but also how these platforms can be used to improve reconnaissance, discover and exploit vulnerabilities more efficiently, and even the ability to write polymorphic code, capable of changing its appearance in a way that makes it very hard for us to be able to detect this earlier. And it also gives it the ability to evade detection by many scanners out there in the market. Other types of potential attacks that we're seeing and should be of concern include things like prompt injection to expose internal systems, application programming interfaces, or API access, and data sources. Prompts and queries that cause large replies or loops until the service runs out of tokens. Prompt injection to provide product support responses for questions the attacker that can then deploy for their advantage. Prompts that generate legally sensitive output related to libel and defamation laws. And even attacks that might inject data into training modules. On the plus side as well, though, generative AI platforms should actually make it simpler for developers to leverage tools to write more secure code and make it easier for them to also scan for vulnerabilities. In addition to recognizing cyber attacks, we can train it to understand the MITRE attack framework, which can help us improve incident response times by making it easier to hunt for threats and automate playbooks, analyze files, analyze code, create tests, give us the ability to write better policies, and provide end users with better best practice guidance, and even detect code written by a generative platform, a generative AI platform as well. So I guess we can all agree, on one side of the spectrum, ChatGPT's actually enabled our partners to be able to do things and enabled us to automate tasks to make our lives easier. But we also need to understand that at the same time, while those tools are helping us in business, those tools can be redeployed by nefarious actors and actually utilized to help them become more efficient and plan more efficient attacks on our businesses. Now that we've talked a little bit about the impacts of OpenAI, what we'd like to do is show you some of the most common email threats types that we see at Barracuda and discuss the role of how AI can help you in the world of cybersecurity. So at this point, we've got a giveaway for all of you listening. What we'd like to do is have you guys try and name one of the email threat types that you think are prevalent out there. Feel free to put your answer up in Q&A, and we'll reach out to you at a later point to actually award that prize, and we'll follow that up in the QA to discuss that further. So I'll give you a second in order to think of a type of email threat type you may have heard of and get that chucked into the chat. So hopefully you've all had enough time, you've had the ability to throw something in there. Now, what I'd like to kick into is we'd like to talk to you about what we've discovered here at Barracuda. And what we've discovered at Barracuda is we're helping our customers identify the most common email threat types that they're being affected by. And the reason behind that is to help businesses like yourself to understand the email threat landscape and why you need different types of technology to help protect you and your staff and your company. So as you can see on this chart here, we provided you with statistically the 13 different types of email threat types we see. Starting from the left, we're seeing the less complex sort of solutions, ranging through to the right, which includes the more complex sort of attacks. The ones that have the biggest impact, and these are the ones that we believe companies need to pay more attention to and invest more heavily into to ensure that they're protected. To give you an idea, using OpenAI, attackers can craft 1 million slightly different variations of the same phishing email, which will help them avoid the detectors. And they can do it in various different languages or any language available in the world. What we're finding is any detection system that heavily relies just on natural language processing, for an example of that, your traditional spam filters, will be extremely vulnerable to this. And next, what we'd like to do is we've actually chosen one of those 13 types, and we're going to take a closer look at business email compromise. Business email compromise is an exploit in which an attacker obtains access to a business email account and then imitates the owner's identity. They do this in order to defraud the company and its employees, customers, or partners. Often an attacker will create an account with an email address almost identical to the one on the corporate network, relying on the assumed trust between the victim and their email account. BEC is sometimes described as a man-in-the-middle attack. For some of us on here may have heard of it termed that way as well. I guess there's specific types of business email compromise attacks we see. And whilst this is just to give you an overview, this is not all of the attacks that we see. So we'll start off first, the false invoice scheme. Companies with foreign suppliers are often targeted with this tactic, wherein attackers pretend to be the suppliers, and they're generally requesting a fund transfer for payment to an account owned by the fraudster. We also see a lot of CEO fraud attacks, where attackers will pose as a company CIO or any executive within the organization. They'll generally send an email out to their employees requesting information or sending it across to finance. And generally the end result is it's a request from them to transfer money to an account that they control at the end of the day. We also see account compromises, where an executive or an employee's email attack is hacked and used to request invoice payments to vendors listed in their email contacts. Payments are often then sent to fraudulent bank accounts at the same time as well. We're seeing an influx of attorney impersonation, where an attacker will seek to impersonate a lawyer or another representative from a law firm, which can be responsible for a lot of sensitive matters. These type of attacks often occur through email or via the phone, and generally appear at the end of a business day, where victims are not prepared or in a hurry to leave the office, and can generally share or provide information to that attacker that shouldn't be shared. And last but not least, we also see specific attacks based around HR and bookkeeping, where those employees will be targeted in order to obtain sensitive information about either the personnel or the business. And they're hoping that that information that they're sharing with them can then be used in any of those other types of attacks as well, such as finding out who the CEO is, finding out who those executives are, who can authorize the staff to go ahead and buy the Apple iTunes cards, etc. So let's have a quick look at how some of these threats manifest. I guess the key thing is that the attackers are no longer relying on malware or malicious links in order to attack our customers. They're very focused on deception techniques, which we pointed out there, where you can see where the email address has been impersonated to make it appear as though the CEO is actually emailing out to that customer base. We generally find they also have some form of sense of urgency. So we can see there that in this particular email, are you in the office today? Immediately, sense of urgency comes in. And then we can see there immediately that the managing director is requiring a wire transfer. And there's also that sense of urgency about getting back to them as soon as possible. So as you can see, these email attacks are being crafted. They're using very careful things such as impersonation techniques, that sense of urgency, and they're even signing them off from an authority or an executive, which generally will lead someone within the organization to see this email as legitimate and then follow those actions. I guess the key thing that we really need to understand here is what happens if the CFO responds with a question. Well, it turns out products like ChatGPT can provide a very plausible answer and conduct an entire conversation in a professional manner in this email. They can actually help convince the CFO that she is indeed speaking with the actual CEO and not with a robot. And unless the CFO physically talks to the CEO or calls him, we can easily see how this could be easily transferred, could lead to a wire transfer and the customer following the requirements there. The key thing we need to remember here is that OpenAI allows not just the attacker to train the model, but also then allows them to use that information that we've trained it on to either write emails, send information to various other contacts. It can even craft letters in the style of what the CEO or the CIO might be writing in. And it can also ask for sensitive information such as a wire transfer. As you can imagine, it's very difficult to detect because when you're looking at this and communicating with it, you feel as though that you're actually working with those people within your organization. And a lot of the examples and reasons for why the person is in contact can be very plausible sounding emails or text messages that that employee will receive. I guess one of the key things that we don't really talk about, and this is information provided by the ACCC, where according to the ACCC report, we're actually seeing massive combined losses to business email compromise, where there were over 227 million in 2021. Now, another fact is this is a significant increase, where we saw these types of reports are resulted in 2020 only showing 128 million. The next report's coming up in July, and I bet this will go up even more significantly. In another report from the Australian Cybersecurity Council, the average loss per successful business email compromise event is $64,000, which reported, compared to last financial year, which was reported closer to about $50,000. And some more news for you. Just in today, between April 2022 and April 2023, even Microsoft's own threat intelligence detected and investigated over 35 million business email compromise attempts, with an average of 156,000 attempts daily. Microsoft also observed a 38% increase in cybercrime-as-a-service, targeting business email as well during 2019 and 2020. So we have some more details here just to break it down a bit further for you, and it's quite an interesting table when you start to look at it. I think one of the key things that we can see here, and this report's come from ScamWatch in 2021, is that all businesses, regardless of size, will be affected. And we can actually see the losses and the number of reports there. I think something that's really important to highlight here is we do see a big change and transition between small and medium business. As you can see, the attacks are waning. But what we have discovered is that as businesses grow larger, they're starting to deploy more cybersecurity services, which means that they're less at chance or less at risk. I think the biggest thing to really be concerned about is the percentage change in losses from 2020 to obviously to 2021. As you can see there, we're seeing increases 70% plus across the spectrum. And I'm sure any of us business owners here would be more than happy to have seen that sort of growth in our business over the last 12 months. Obviously, the bad guys are finding a way to get that growth. And I think what it's proving is that the attacks are becoming more prevalent, and we're seeing more and more traffic across the customer base. So similar to the ACCC report, the Australian Cybersecurity Council also look at their report, and they actually highlight the difference of the average cost per cybercrime across small, medium, and large businesses. So here are a few things just to remember. There has been a dramatic rise in the average cost per cybercrime report to over 39,000 for small businesses. I remember when that number reflected was closer to 16,000, and unfortunately it wasn't that long ago, about 2 years ago. We've also seen an increase across medium businesses of 88,000 for the average remediation costs to be able to recover from. And then I think when you look at the larger businesses with the 62,000, and that actually highlights that we're still seeing an increase even in the larger businesses space, with that growth about 14% on what it was last year as well. The other thing we haven't covered in here is obviously the reputational damage as well that you and your business will suffer if you do have this type of incident. You know, I guess one of the things to think about is how will the incident actually affect you with today's cash flow, and how will that incident affect you in the future with, you know, retaining and getting new customers and growing. And I think that's a really huge risk that we all need to be aware of. And as we can see, the costs are going up, they're spiraling quickly. They'll definitely start hitting the bottom line for any businesses that are affected really quickly. So note, we've also got a case study that we want to touch in a little bit here. So as we can see here, an Australian engineering company's emails were somehow intercepted and redirected from the same email address, but they had a .com instead of a .com.au. It contained a request to change bank account details, and the actual attackers had attached a letter with the legitimate company's logo to that email. What then happened after that was a payment was made into that fraudulent account, and it wasn't discovered until the supplier queried their unpaid invoices. We've seen incidents like this happen very often. Generally, what we do find is we find that many of these invoices may not be chased up for 2 to 3 months. So I think the question we have to ask ourselves is we have to be a bit more careful and a bit more vigilant about how we change our banking details and the kind of information we send out to customers. I'm not sure of many companies out there who could have paid that 90K invoice 3 times and then realize that they haven't paid their actual supplier, who'd still be able to make that payment quickly and rapidly to be able to support that partner. So how long does it take for cybercriminals to start an attack is a question that we hear quite often. And I guess the whole key thing with it here is AI has made it quicker and enables people to make those attacks quicker. So here are a few of the things that we're traditionally looking for if we were going to launch an attack. So the first thing you want to understand is the goal of what those bad guys are trying to perpetrate. Are they looking for a ransomware incident, a business email compromise, maybe a fake invoice payment, or they're looking to even facilitate things as payroll changes? You know, when you think about what the bad attackers need, all they need is a target or a sender to send that email address through to. All they need is an email format. You know, they need a domain that has a good reputation because that'll allow you through some of the lower security products that are available. You know, they're looking for things with authenticated mail service. And they're also looking for the ability to, you know, be able to browse Tor and even use Bitcoin for payments. And then when we start looking at the sources for where we can actually find this information, you know, think about things like LinkedIn, where we name the executives of our company. We give those details out in public, so it's very easy to find that. You know, there's products like Hunter.io that will enable you to understand how the business works. You know, we've always got the famous tools that we all love. Google or Bing searches will give us a lot of that relevant information. And then, you know, there are other tools that we can use, such as NSLooker. When you start thinking about what these bad guys need to actually facilitate and perpetrate an attack, I'm sure you'll agree that a lot of that information can be gleaned or harvested from the web in under 5 minutes. You know, ChatGPT can also be used to easily replicate an existing legitimate website. So in other words, it's making that ability for us to bring that attack to light a lot quicker than what traditionally was able to do without all the automation. You know, it can even help you design or replicate pages such as Gmail, Outlook, or even your bank account with small or slight variations that can help avoid detection as well from some of the security products that are out there. Now, another questionnaire for everybody on the call. This question is asked quite often. I do hear our Prime Minister discussing it quite often. We'd like you all to have a think about how often does a cyber attack happen in Australia, and obviously put that information through into the chat. We'll treat that as A, B, and C. So it's either A, every day, B, every 12 minutes, or C, every 7 minutes. So on that note, we've seen a couple come through. The actual answer is cyber attacks happen every 7 minutes. And to back this information up, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre received over 76,000 cybercrimes reported last year in Australia. And that equates to one report of a cyber attack every 7 minutes. Now, when we go and compare that with last year, the average was one every 8 minutes. The key thing to remember here is we're very early on in the days of generative AI and its impact on workplace collaboration and how it's going to affect these incidents. So whilst we're reporting these information at the moment, as this process and product is available longer, we'll actually have more credible information to bring back. What we can see is that generative AI is going to help many businesses in being able to respond to clients quickly, take notes during meetings, even automate some of those tasks that they generally, are doing manually right at the moment. But I guess the big catch is that it also allows the nefarious guys to accelerate their content creation. It also allows the nefarious actors to actually be able to accelerate those attacks on us and our customers as well. So how can we detect email threats that got past our existing email gateway? So at this point here, what we're going to do is we're going to share a little bit of information about how at Barracuda and with the help of alltasks, we can help you identify what's going on actually in your Office 365 email stack right at the moment. And we have some great and amazing tools that the team at alltasks are happy to roll out, to share with you, and actually come back and have meetings to discuss the findings so you can better understand what's going on in your email stack. At this point, I'll hand over to Alex, who works with me as a sales engineer in the APAC region, who'll actually go through this information and provide a little bit of context around how we can help protect and secure you with the help of alltasks. Over to you, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. So yeah, as Luke said, I'm Alex. I'm a sales engineer, solutions architect for the Barracuda MSP company here in Australia. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the email threat scanner. And the reason that we sort of want to recap on this is some of you may actually be part of the 97% of businesses that feel unprepared to deal with compromises or email attacks. You might be wondering, how do I combat AI-born or ChatGPT driven threats coming into my organization? And how do I know whether I have any business email compromise emails just waiting to be clicked on by the wrong person at the wrong time? And that's where our email threat scanner comes in to help you find those dangerous gaps in your Microsoft 365 security. And then also help you identify who within your organization might be the most vulnerable to these cybersecurity breaches. Awesome. So as we can see here, once we've run a scan, we actually go back over the last 12 months of a Microsoft 365 tenancy and scan all of the emails in and out of your organization or your tenancy. What we're looking to identify is how many threats exist, and we're looking at specific types of threats, which I'll go over in a moment. And we're also trying to discover as well some more data around DMARC as well, which is a fairly uncommon protocol that people haven't deployed out there now. If you could go to the next slide for me, please, Luke. So here, obviously, we want to kind of dive in and find out what type of attacks are actually coming in. There's no even spread. Not everybody is subject to the same attacks, and two organizations within the same industry can often be receiving a completely different scale of attack and also types of attack. So what we're looking to identify is things like conversation hijacking, which we just reviewed with that business email compromise attack before, extortion, impersonation attacks, again, related to that previous business email compromise, traditional phishing and spear phishing, and also scamming and threats. So what we do is we break those down for you into quantities, and we can actually show you the examples of those emails so that you can actually take steps to mitigate them as well. Next slide, please, Luke. Excellent. So here's a little bit of a breakdown. Really critical information for you as an organization is to know who is the most vulnerable, maybe who might be interacting or potentially at the most risk of interacting with those emails, purely based on numbers. The more somebody is attacked, the more likely they are to eventually give in or respond to an attack, and that's really important. You can then use this information to further train those specific users, maybe identify what, if anything, they have out publicly that's maybe making them more of an attack for those bad actors as well. Next slide, please, Luke. Awesome. And DMARC, I mentioned this earlier. This is an evolution of SPF or Sender Policy Framework. It's essentially a reporting tool set to allow you and your organization's IT team to identify the sources of email from your domains. It's a reputation protection platform built around the idea of knowing who is trying to potentially impersonate email addresses as your organization. So really critical information, often overlooked, but something that we think is critical to your business being able to understand where email is coming from that is authorized or unauthorized. Next slide, please. Awesome. And we touched on this briefly before, but we can dive into the specific people and attack types that we can drive into and help you understand, where to spend some effort and time and energy into protecting yourselves. Cool. Next slide, please. Great. So another question for us for the chat. If you guys could have a good guess at how many spear phishing attacks we've identified with the Barracuda email threat scan. Awesome. Looks like we've got some good entries coming into the Q&A in the chat. Fantastic. If you could reveal the data for us, please, Luke, that would be fantastic.
No problems at all.
Awesome. So these stats are a little bit scary, I find, and I love looking at them just as a great sign of us doing the right thing as an organization with our partners. We've run this scan on 16,000 or more organizations, and it's resulted in 12 million spear phishing attacks being identified through that tool. It's a lot of email. You notice that we don't mention how many emails we've scanned because that's a big number. It wouldn't fit on the screen. So it's a lot of information to pass, and it's only helping us to protect you moving forward. And something I just wanted to touch on a little bit here too, with the likes of GPT or OpenAI coming forward. We also have platforms from other big names in the industry coming forward with their own answer to generative AI platforms. The email threat scanner is actually built on a technology that we use to protect mailboxes as well proactively. And it's an AI-driven or purpose-built AI-driven platform that connects directly to the Microsoft tenancy. And it's essentially an AI versus AI scenario. So as we see iterations of new AI platforms coming out and being manipulated by bad actors to attack your organization, we then can respond to that with in-kind technology to help protect you. It's a really important part of cybersecurity moving forward, is that we start to include these as tool sets to protect you as well. Awesome. Thanks, Luke. I'll hand back to you, mate.
Perfect, thank you. And I think another thing that should be mentioned as well, so we at Barracuda have been utilizing AI platforms for email protection for over 7 years. So it's not something new to us. And obviously we're seeing the range of generative AI tools being released to public. And what that's leading to is obviously, as Alex explained, it is a battle of the AI. They're both working to do different things. Whilst we've got some nefarious actors looking to actually attack us, at the same time we're actually using this AI to actually be able to counterpunch that and ensure that we can offer our clients the security that they need. So Matt, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, why not? Well, first of all, if anything, I actually wanted to thank you both. So first off, I'll just say, look, again, a quick thank you to Luke and Alex for today's session. Some of those statistics you guys just presented towards the end and even about midway through were mind-blowing. So, it just, for me, I think it's quite clear just how important email security is to any business. Obviously, any business that relies on this service for daily operations, it's a known fact here, guys. We simply cannot do without it, right? We cannot do without email. Hopefully, today's session helped in identifying the responsibility that we can all take on to better prepare ourselves and our cybersecurity posture around email services. I think most of our attendees here today hopefully will agree that a simple service that we take for granted, being email, is also one of the most exploitable in the modern working world. Given that cybersecurity is at the forefront of our minds at alltasksIT, we have developed our own internal simplified framework to assist and support your IT journey with us and help you minimize your cyber risk in today's IT world and the ever-evolving threat landscape. We're calling this the All Tasks Essentials, and for more information, we'd love that if you could contact us, and we're happy to have a conversation and a chat about it. That actually ends today's webinar, guys. So thank you again for your time and your participation in today's event. And thank you for being so interactive. I really appreciate you guys jumping in and doing the Q&A when we put the challenges out there. Again, please feel free to reach out to all of us or any of us if you've got any further questions about your cybersecurity maturity. And remember, we are always here to help you. So there's no silly questions. We want to help. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and thank you once again for attending. I think there's a small Q&A slide just at the very end if you want to throw that in there. If anybody's got any questions and you want to pop them into the Q&A now, feel free to do that. Or alternatively, we can wrap up and we look forward to hearing from you if you need any support. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
And don't forget, if you do book in for an email threat scan through the team at AllTasks and join one of their meetings, you will go in the draw to win that wonderful McLaren F1 Lego toy. Which, Matt, yes. How do I join? Because I'd love to do that as well.
I think I need the demo one that you got to hand to me first, so I can play with it a little bit first.
It needs a hands-on tour before
you. Yeah, just a hands-on trial, just a trial. But look, I'm sure all of our attendees today will love to get their hands on that. So yeah, by all means, give us a call and let's have a chat. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.